Okay, my name is Daphne Hoffacker. I'm the Advocacy Chair for the Austin Council of PTAs. Welcome to my Advocacy Huddle. Today we're going to learn how to write letters to the editor and op-eds. Actually, I'm trying to get myself as the main viewer here, but it's not working. So I want to start by pointing out a worksheet for you guys. And I'm actually going to share my screen so that y'all can see this worksheet. I hope y'all have the worksheet up as well. So do you guys see this worksheet writing your letter on your screen? And hopefully y'all have it up as well. Okay, so I know you have this on your screen. I'm actually going to make it a little bit bigger because I see y'all squinting into your monitors there. Well, I guess I don't even know how to do that. So I'm going to go to, okay, that didn't help much. Okay, here we go. Make it nice and big. I'm actually going to read through this. Even though I know you guys can read, I want to read through it because some people remember better when you talk to them, but also because I want to talk a little bit about each of those and each of these and explain why it's important. So the first thing is, before you get started, you can only, when you write a version of a letter, you can only submit it to one publication, and then you just have to wait and see if they're gonna use it. They generally tell you within a day or so because they want topical, timely information in their opinion section. But honestly, I've had things published that I never heard from them, never heard back from them, only found out because my kid did a search on me and found out that a number of the letters that I'd submitted had been actually published. So be aware that that's a thing that can happen. What I recommend is that you slightly change your letter. You don't even have to change it much. You can change the intro or you can change the final part and then submit it to other publications while you're waiting. Can't do the same thing, but you can do something very similar. And I've found that I can write a letter and then make quick adjustments, and suddenly I have 5 or 6 different versions. Maybe I use a different set of facts. Maybe I use a different story. But there are little things you can change and very quickly knock out a bunch of these things and submit them to multiple publications. And then you have a better chance of kind of getting your voice out there. The second thing is to figure out before you start writing. You can do it after, and I've done it after, but it does make it a little easier if you, before you start writing, find the publication, and we do have a long list. We're going to get to that in a second. Choose the publication that you want, and then go to their page and really research what they want. How many letter or words they might have characters, but most of them have a word count. Most of them will tell you exactly the format that they want, and it should fairly well match this this worksheet that we're going to fill in. And it'll give you information like, what other requirements. They may require you to refer to an existing article in their paper before you can submit opinion piece. Very often I've submitted opinion pieces that are literally like, at a news conference this week, Governor Abbott said, and it hasn't been anything perhaps that they've covered, but it brings a kind of a common knowledge to their attention. So be aware of that. Make sure you choose the publications, read all the information. And again, I've got a long list. We're going to get to that. It's a rabbit hole, so I don't want you guys getting distracted yet. We're going to stay focused on this worksheet. Check your facts and cite sources. So I actually have several talking points, memo is actually a thing. Talking point flyers or publications, pieces of paper that you guys can look at. Unfortunately, as we compiled them, and I did it with a group, we didn't always say where they came from. So kind of be aware of that when you're out there doing research. Make sure you find facts and you find sources for them. I've actually got talking points that come from a number of our partner organizations that I'm going to share with you, and you can quote them, cite them as your source. The Austin Council PTA is not your source. It will never be your source. We're nonprofit, nonpartisan volunteer group. And so we don't do the hard work that's required to fact check everything. We rely on our partners. So find good nonpartisan partners. We've got lists, and make sure that you're citing them. You can also use news articles. You can stay away from opinion pieces, but the interesting thing about opinion pieces is they may have links. They may cite sources that give you an opportunity to go read those. So look for that. The last thing is, well, two more things. Remember your audience. People who read newspapers, it's not the same as reading like a PhD thesis. So don't use big words. These are everyday people. You want to reach everybody. Don't use jargon. Don't use slang. Very simply make your case. Make it as eloquently as you can, but kindly and fairly. And it always helps to have humor. Some of these things are hard to be funny about, and we're not paid humorists. So don't try sarcasm or anything that's going to fall flat. But do be aware that, make your point, keep it simple, don't use big words, think about who you're writing for. And finally, make sure somebody reads your work. Do not send anything that has not been proofread, because very often when, we stop looking at the details, and I've written stuff that people have, when I sent it to a friend to say, hey, look at this over, they'll say like, comes across as mean, or comes across as flippant, or comes across as sarcastic or something, which I didn't intend, or maybe I did, but it's not appropriate. And so find a good friend who will help you kind of find the sweet spot of giving factual information without condescending. That's an area that I continue to work on as I get older. It continues to be a problem for me. So think about what your problems might be and make sure you've got somebody out there, who has your back. So that being said, now that we've kind of talked about all of this, I'd love for you guys to make a copy of this worksheet. I think that's something you can do in the Google whatever and save it, because you're going to actually edit. You're going to write right here in each of these spaces. You're going to write kind of from the cues. You're going to just take notes. And then when this worksheet is done, you're going to take the worksheet, you're going to take all the information and put it in a new document and massage it, turn it into a letter that you can turn in. So has everybody done that? Oh, and for those of you who are new, let me add that link again. Let me find the chat here. And if you are new, if you don't mind putting in the chat which school you're from. Okay, so I just resent the Google document, and I'm going to give everybody a moment to kind of download it and look it over. I do have pages and pages of kind of talking points that I'm going to reveal to you after we kind of go through this worksheet. Because again, rabbit hole, I don't want you guys going down your rabbit holes yet. I want you to kind of stay focused on this process. And also I have a very long list that was compiled over the course of many months with many different organizations. And that being said, it may not be current. It may be that when you decide what newspaper you're going to go for, it's probably best if you go to the website and make sure the information that you have is up to date. They could change it at any time. And so we don't really understand. A Davis parent, woo. I'm a Davis mom, an ex-Davis mom. I have a soft spot for that school. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so is there anybody, raise your hand if you're having trouble getting this document. Seeing none, we shall move on. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is really think about the problem and state it as plainly as you can. When you look at the websites for these newspapers, they will tell you to do this. State it as plain as you can. The example that I gave is based on an op-ed that I submitted. And it basically, I started with, recently Governor Abbott has been calling his education savings accounts or voucher plan, a civil rights issue, but the real civil rights issue is starving Texas's public education system of necessary funding. So right to the point, they're going to know exactly what this letter is about. Everything from then on is like filling in the details and supporting why I'm saying this and adding personal details. So if you can think of, if there's something on your mind right now, feel free to fill it in this. I'm going to give you guys a minute or so. Just type something in. And like I said, we have talking points. You can come back and make this better. But for now, you can say something as simple as, I want more funding for my kid's school. I want my kid to be able to compete with students around the country, which means we need more resources in our schools. You could say, my child is in a classroom of 30 students and isn't able to get the attention he needs. We need our Texas government to fund our schools better so we can have smaller class sizes. Whatever it is, y'all type away. And if you could either, raise your hand or give me a thumbs up when y'all are ready to move on to the next step. That would be, I think, helpful. I don't want to rush anybody. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a rough draft. You're just getting your initial thoughts down. It could be bullet points. It could be text lingo. You could do you could just like refer to your husband's bad dad joke. Whatever it is that gets you thinking about when you come back to massage this, an issue that's important to you. How's it coming, y'all? So a thumbs up or a hand wave on your screen whenever you're ready to move on. No rush. Y'all take your time. Okay. We're getting there. I'm going to give it 30 more seconds, y'all. And you can keep, those of you who have finished or are still waiting, you can keep making bullet points or making notes for maybe a second piece, whatever makes sense. You can also start thinking about the second section. So the middle section is where you personalize it. That first paragraph is going to be like what you see the issue is. The second section is going to be why you're here. So in my example, I had written my son's smallest class size is 40 students. That actually changed, by the way, in case anybody of you are worried about hitting high school and seeing 40 students in a class. It happens at the beginning of the school year and then they level. But he still has school classes that are like 36, which is a lot. My son's smallest class size is 40 students, and we have one counselor for every 400 kids. This underfunding is leaving kids behind, neglecting their emotional needs, and making it impossible for teachers to do the important work of educating our vulnerable students. You could talk about how much you're paying for school supplies or fair share for those of you who are in sports or band. You could talk about seeing your teachers stressed out. You could talk about class sizes are making it hard for the teachers to get all of the tests and the grades recorded on time. You could talk about how funding, I know at Matthews they talked about, and I hope at all of your schools, in the PTA and CAC, they're talking um, about absences or, students not coming to school. You can explain, if this is an issue in your family, maybe you've got somebody who's chronically ill. And so sending your kid to school when other people around them are ill is a hardship on your family. And so you keep your son home when there's illness in the classroom, or perhaps your child has some autoimmune disease and it's affecting his ability to go to school when viruses run through. And so, you could talk about the fact that perhaps their teacher is still giving them classwork, even though our district is not getting paid for the days that they're not in school. There's a lot of examples you can give. And I did see that we have someone new. Jesse, I am going to add this link back into the chat again. That is a worksheet that we're working off of. And if you don't mind going through and you can kind of read the first part, we have done this first state the problem you want to talk about, and you can see an example there. And I'm happy to spend time with you afterwards. When you get this worksheet, Jesse, go ahead and download it so you have a copy you can work on, which is what we're all doing. Right now, we're working on the second section, which is share your story, share your observations, share kind of what you're seeing and hearing and why this is important to you. I've been talking about funding. This example is actually bouncing between vouchers and funding and school safety, which I believe our lack of counselors is having a big impact on school safety. I'm going to give people another minute or so. Again, this is just a rough draft. You can write in any way that makes you feel comfortable to get your thoughts out on paper. And stream of consciousness is fine because you are going to go back and make this beautiful. You do not have to worry about right now making sure this is a masterpiece. This is just getting your thoughts on paper so that when you're done with this, you can take it and massage it into a beautiful letter. So how are you guys doing? Give me a thumbs up or a wave if you've gotten through this section. Okay, we're pretty close. I'm going to give you all another 30 seconds. Keep writing your thoughts down. There's so much we can say. And again, for those who came in late, I want to assure you, I have pages of talking points. After you do this, if you want to read through them to give yourself some more ideas, and they are all from partner organizations that we work with. I also want to remind the new people who came, we might have missed the beginning, that you cannot submit the same letter to multiple organizations, newspapers, or journalistic outlets. You cannot submit the same thing to multiple. You submit one, and then you have to wait to hear whether they're going to use it. If you don't hear from them in like a week, it might be safe to assume that they haven't used it and reuse it. But you definitely want to check their website before you do that, or their newspaper, because I have had multiple letters to the editor submitted. I never heard from them. Luckily, I got busy and didn't resubmit them somewhere else. But my son found out doing a web search on me for a class project that they actually got published. And so they don't like it when they see your letter in multiple publications. But what you can do about that is make subtle changes. You can change the introduction. You can change your examples. You might choose a different set of facts. But basically, you can share the same sentiment and use the same outline. Just submit various variations to different publications. And I've had some luck with that. I wrote one letter that I was able to write multiple versions of it. And to my knowledge, only one out of the 5 that were submitted was accepted, but I felt like it increased my odds of getting accepted, the fact that I had several of them. Okay, so I'm going to assume y'all have kind of gotten the second section in, share your story, talk about why it's personal, and then discuss a solution. So the example is, instead of wasting our money on a voucher program, increase the basic allotment so every child in Texas has a chance at a high quality education in their local community public school. think about what your intro was and what you saw as kind of your main problem, the stating the problem, and then kind of expand on why is that a problem um, to you, and then, you know, what you would do about it, what you would do differently. I think increasing the basic allotment is one of the talking points and messaging points that every organization that we work with is hitting on right now. It's an important message for us to get across to our representatives and the decision makers. And also in the letters to editor, and after we finish this worksheet, we're going to talk a little bit about the publications and ways in which you can target your messages to be most effective right now during this sort of voucher battle and funding battle. So discuss the solution. Y'all give me a thumbs up or a wave if you feel like you have had enough time to share your ideas. Okay, I'm going to give you all 30 more seconds. We're closing in on this. By now, you should have about 3 paragraphs worth of information that you can, once you massage it and take it back to your final edit. And then you want to close with a call to action. And this is really because these letters to the editor get shared. They get shared among family members. The representatives seeing their staff is calling their local newspapers looking for how opinion is shaking out on their side or against it. And so when people are reading it, and maybe the first time they're exposed to this information, you want to send them to do something with it. So I almost always say something like, call your representative and ask them to say no to vouchers. Call the governor and ask him to fund our public schools. If you're talking specifics about the funding, you could say, call the governor and ask him to release $5 billion, the $2.99 billion that is in the budget right now that's yet to be released. You can use specifics for it if you have them. And if you have data that helps you do that, absolutely do that. So I'm going to give you guys another 30 seconds to jot down what a call to action might look like in the case of your letter. And I'm going to happily tell you that if you've got 3 paragraphs and a final paragraph with a call to action, you have probably reached your word count. Word counts can go anywhere from, I feel like I've seen them from like 180 words to 600 words or 800 words. They can get quite large, but you don't have to fill the whole word count. And I will say that some of my shorter ones have been published more quickly than the longer ones, because very often they're looking to fill space. So, and know that they may choose you based on space, based on how long it is and how much room they actually have in their publication. This is less true of web journals, and there are a lot of web journals out there as well. They tend not to take as many op-eds as the printed journals. And Texas Tribune used to have a great opportunity for people to write op-eds. And they stopped that really sometime before, I mean, after, maybe during COVID, but I think after. Anyway, so that's it, y'all. That is your worksheet. Now you're going to take that information, put it in a new document, turn it into sentences, turn it into paragraphs, fill in with however you want with more stories, or there are a lot of fillers that people use, writers use, you know, in light of, or because we know this is true, therefore, things like that. If you're really kind of wanting to pad and add some word count, you can use things like that. If you reach your word count and you want to reduce it, take away those kind of things. It's more important to get the facts and your sentiment across. So, if with y'all's permission, I'm going to stop this share, and I am going to move on to the letters to the editor, the entire toolkit. And I'm going to share this link right now and put it in the chat. Inside this link, y'all open it up. This is in our advocacy resource folder for those of you I harp on this advocacy resource folder all the time. I hope everybody's got it bookmarked. It's where I put all the things. It's where we all put all the things. So it gives you super quick, easy access to whatever you need. This letter to the editor toolkit, and I am now going to share again. So y'all can share with me what's here. Oh yeah, let's do that. Okay, so we have on the right-hand side, target newspapers. There are two things I want to show you guys in this folder. Number one, I'm going to do the other one first. Number one, the Texas Ledge 2024. If you'll notice at the bottom of this spreadsheet, in the bottom of your screen, we have tabs where we've pulled out information to help us better identify who these representatives are, where they're from, what's important to them. I will let you notice I'm going to scroll all the way over here. And actually, I don't know if that's, we actually even have the top 5 donors for those of you who are interested. This is a very important spreadsheet that we have been working on, actually with the help of, it started off with an advocacy, somebody on the advocacy group, somebody who came, I believe, to last year's writing workshop. And she worked with her students at her university to create the foundation, the bones of this spreadsheet. But this is hugely useful information. Not only do we have every House member, we have all the senators, we have the House Select Committee Education, and again, their donors, so that you can see people making education policy, who's paying for it. We also, so the Rainey Amendment, for those who aren't familiar, was an amendment that was introduced by one of our most conservative representatives, who basically gets annoyed every single time this has come up, vouchers, and vouchers have come up every year since 1957, y'all. In case anybody's wondering, we have been fighting this battle for a really long time, and we have been winning, always. And we will continue to win because it's really that important. But the representative from, Representative Rainey from rural Texas, who, by the way, got primaried out, he is no longer a representative, but he introduced an amendment that said you cannot use our public dollars for private schools. And so we could gauge who was supportive of vouchers and who wasn't, really based on how people voted in this Rainey Amendment. So we took all the Rainey Amendment results and we've divided them up by the no's and the yeses. And you'll see I've highlighted here the no's. These are the people who voted against the Rainey Amendment. So in other words, they're perfectly fine with our public dollars going to private schools. This is their home addresses. So we can tell this guy, Ellen, actually not a guy, a woman who's actually in this area. My apologize to everyone involved. Her main address is Bernie, Texas. So then I'll show you the newspaper thing. We can go and look for all of the newspapers in Bernie, Texas. We also have the yeses, and several of these were primaried. And ta-da, we have the list of those who were primaried, who won, who lost, who they lost to, and the towns they represent, also newspapers they represent. So for those of you who are very interested in spreading the word about vouchers and the importance of keeping them out of our government, also about if you just want to, you could literally write an op-ed that's just loving on public schools in general and saying, by the way, in Seguin, Alan Schoolcraft won and will be on the ballot, and he is a man who represents anti-public education sentiment. That's allowed. You're an opinion piece and you're allowed to say that. And so for those of you who are interested in this information, this is gold right here. We will be writing as much as possible to these newspapers and talking about the impacts of because we don't want any of these pro-voucher incumbents to win. They were put into place by money that was given to Governor Abbott from a donor in Ohio. He used this money to primary these people, and he used actually the border as the issue to get them into office. He didn't talk about public education. So these people are in office because they represent a very right-wing view of public education, but nobody knows it. And so talking to these, getting pieces in these newspapers, their staff is going to read it. It will get spread around the community. They are more important than you could possibly imagine. And so I'm going to point those out to y'all. This is on one of the tabs at the very bottom here. And these are the newspapers that we can. And actually, this one is San Antonio, a ton of newspapers, including university newspapers. So if you have somebody you know at Trinity University in San Antonio, you can write to their newspaper as a concerned aunt or as a grandparent or as as a mom of someone who is looking to go to Trinity University. You can do that. So you find connections to these newspapers where you can. And it's all fair game. This last tab, kind of ignore that because it's not accurate. It had said it was a list of bipartisan opposition. I saw people in there that didn't make sense. And so I've tagged it as not accurate, but I need to spend some time understanding what that list is. So that is our Texas Ledge if you want to target specific. And I will say, we see it all the time. Waco Papers will run things from Austin. San Angelo, I've seen him out in Lubbock. You don't have to not do this just because you're from Austin, but it does help if you can find some way to make a connection with that local community. So that's the Texas Ledge. That is right here in this letter to the editor toolkit. The other thing we have in this targets, because both of these are targets, the Ledge targeting specific representative areas, and then here targeting specific newspapers. This is a little, like I said, put together by multiple organizations over the course of several months, about a year ago, I think leading up to the last legislative session. And so it's the formatting's a little all over the place. And I highly recommend, if you choose any of these, to click on their links, and then you'll be able. Okay, so you may have to do a Google search. Here's a great example of clearly this data has not been scrubbed. But look around for them. I encourage you to read the newspaper, find what op-eds they've published recently, look at what they're talking about, look at the actual articles that they cover, find some way to make connections. And this last tab that I showed you on the last spreadsheet where I listed the newspapers, that was doing a very simple search at literally like 1:20 in the morning after band camp or a band competition. And so it's possible when you go to the Texas newspapers that you will find other examples of newspapers that belong in those communities. But I just want to show you, if you haven't had a chance to download it yourself, how extraordinarily huge the number of publications available to us in Texas are. So this first list was just kind of general newspapers out and about in various communities. Then they focus on like what they call community papers. These are truly probably only coming out once a week, maybe less. They have fairly low circulation. Although community impact, we read it all the time. And our representatives will use the community impact and these community papers to talk to their constituents. So look for that. We just saw Representative Rogers in his community impact newspaper did a really wonderful piece, editorial. He actually is going down swinging. He's one of those people who was anti-voucher and got primaried by a crazy person. And he's like, trying to take everybody out on his way down. But it was a thing of beauty to read. He had been published multiple times talking about these issues in this very conservative community paper. So, check all of these out. And then at the bottom here are college newspapers, which I love that somebody spent the time gathering college newspapers. Again, if you've got a connection to them, if you, like Gina's with the League of Women Voters, you could say, I volunteer with a group and we're trying to get students understanding these issues so they reliably vote. There are ways that you can make connections to these newspapers that editors, and also keep in mind, they have print space. They want editorials. They want your letters. They may not, especially if a bunch of people are writing in at the same time, be able to publish them all. And if you find they haven't published it, look for another source, find somebody else to publish it. But they want it. So don't feel like you're imposing on them by sending them information. They have a quota, they have space to fill, and they're looking for people to do it. And if you're lucky and they'll get to know you. I actually had an opportunity to write for the Washington Post because they got to know me. I got to know somebody who was doing that there. And so I've seen that. I've seen people who are very big in the advocacy world suddenly get like, 2-page space to publish their opinions or their thoughts. And so as you get more well-known with a publication, if they trust you as a reliable source, there may be opportunities for more of a platform. So keep that in mind as well for those of you who love to write. And honestly, one day I'm going to retire from this organizing business and all I'm going to do is write. I love this so much. And there's so much power in it and so much to say. And it's amazing how very quickly some new idea can turn into just like a whole new angle of looking at a problem. And before you know it, everybody's talking about it from that perspective. And so we have that opportunity to do that. Okay, so those are the targets. Back to the letters to the editor newsletter. I have pages of talking points. And I tell you exactly where they came from. So this Dallas newspaper, that was actually an editorial that I randomly did. I submitted a letter to the editor. It got published by a Dallas newspaper. It's kind of old, but I don't know. I put it in here so you guys could see examples. I need to mark that better. But these are actually resources on funding and vouchers. If you want to do reading on your own to come up with your own ideas, or, what I find is when I'm reading through stuff, I read through from multiple angles. Sometimes I come up with new ways of thinking about things that help explain it maybe differently or to a better or different audience. So we've got resources. And then honestly, I just picked up messaging and talking points this is like from the Teachers AFT, from the Federation Teachers Union. And so they have messaging on vouchers and safe schools here. We also have Pastors for Texas Children, Raise Your Hand Texas. This is brand new, by the way. They just published this one. This is for the 2025 legislative session. And so they've got updated. We are now 46th, y'all. 46th in per pupil funding. I knew we would go down. I hate that I knew that, by the way. But so this is super important that you guys, check out this source. And they list at the bottom of this. Here's another way of getting great information, you guys. When you're out there in your rabbit hole getting more information, look at the bottom here. This Bob Popinski is writing letters to the editor. You will find his opinion pieces. Literally, look at this. It's like, where did I see it? In the community impact, the one that we got this week. So you're in good company, you guys. And this is an example of a guy who's just become a trusted resource, but he's written other stuff as well. So you can do a search on any of these people and read and find out kind of what they've been working on and where their talking points are. Wait, where's oh, here it is. So anyway, look through all of those. The TASA is the Texas Association of School Administrators. I didn't get TASB, but I remember looking at it. I don't know why, but TASB is the Texas Association of School Boards. They also have messaging around this. AISD will have messaging around this. Feel free to look up AISD. This actually is a wonderful piece that we put together for the postcard writing parties. Unfortunately, there was like an extra page that cited all the sources for all of this. Totally disappeared into the ether. So I don't know what the sources are for all of these, other than they're not me and they are reliable sources. It's possible we could take, the sentences and Google all of them and find the original sources, but it is good information if you want to use that or refer to that. So Do y'all have any questions? I'm looking. Oh, awesome. Oh, awesome. Okay. So Jesse says Ellen is a former Austin City Council member. I love that. Okay, so I'm
I have
open.
a question, Daphne.
Yes.
So in writing a letter like this, would be sort of writing as a PTA member? Would you just like would you identify yourself as a member of the uh, your PTA, or would you just be kind of writing as a citizen?
Well, that is a great question, and I've done both. So if you're writing about something that's in the Texas PTA or in our legislative priorities, and you can find those on our website, on the Texas PTA website or the National PTA website, and you want to talk about it as a PTA dad or as somebody who's invested in the PTA, then absolutely you can identify which PTA that you're with. Most of the time, though, I don't identify myself as a PTA. I honestly, I identify myself very generally whenever possible. I'll say I'm a Texas mom or a Texas PTA mom. I rarely say I'm from Austin, although they'll ask for your address and they may say you're from Austin, whether you say it or not. But when I sign my letters, I sign it Daphne Hoffacker, Texas PTA, or I'm sorry, Texas public education mom or Texas mom, concerned Texas mom. So it really depends on the topic and if you feel comfortable that it relates to the PTA goals.
Yeah, because I and you mentioned when you were looking at the different the legislator spreadsheet, and how you might mention this one person was kind of either pro voucher or anti voucher or pro public education. Like if you're getting specific about the candidate, would it be recommended not to just write as a citizen rather than a PTA member?
Absolutely. Yes, we are a nonpartisan nonprofit. It doesn't mean we can't call out representatives for their behavior, but in general, I would just stay away from any level of personal identification when it comes to identifying a specific representative.
Yeah. Anything that would like look like an endorsement of a candidate, I guess.
Yes, yes, that's a great way of looking at it, or an anti-endorsement, or whatever it is.
Right.
And honestly, I mean, you have a lot more freedom. We've got a lot of rules, a lot of guardrails here in the PTA. Unless you feel very comfortable that you're representing appropriately the PTA, I would just use your own thing.
And then
Not
I guess the flip side of that is just because you are a PTA member and possibly with like a position in the PTA, that doesn't mean outside of that position, if you are writing a letter, that you can't, um, as a individual, can't kind of make whatever statement you want about that. Would that be true?
That is true. If you are not representing the PTA, then you can represent yourself when you're representing the PTA. Now, I will say there's some people who can't, right? Like the Texas PTA president is always going to be the Texas PTA president. Lori is the ACPTA president. If she were writing something here in Austin, she'd probably, and even if I were writing for an Austin newspaper or journal, I would probably feel compelled to identify myself because you don't want people also coming afterwards and saying, hey, having any confusion about who you're representing.
Yeah.
But that being said, you can very clearly say, I am on the PTA, and I will sometimes say that I'm with the PTA, but this is from me. This is not a PTA stance. This is me as a mom.
Yeah.
So as long as you make it clear and you're just being careful, you just don't want to, you don't want to put anybody's individual PTAs in the crosshair. And there is some, I mean, it is a state where, I mean, I hate to say retribution is part of the political game, but we have certainly seen examples
Sure.
where, there's been some blowback from organizations who have tried to be bold. And we see that, and you'll see our trustees very careful. They will go down, sometimes represent the district, and other times they're not representing the district. You'll see trustees who are just there as a person.
Yeah.
So not ours so much, but that happens. Okay, that's a great question. Anybody, any other questions? Lori did say once the legislative priorities you could totally identify with or as a PTA member if it's very tied to our legislative priorities. Again, our priorities for the session is still in place until next January. All of our legislative priorities up to this point hold from the last legislative session. And so Lori pointed out it's important to identify as a parent. There are a lot of reference that the decision to not pass parents was to do with teacher labor unions and not parents. And so to her point, it's very powerful. They think that all parents are horrified by what's going on in public school. And it is an important effort that we make as parents to assure people that our public schools are meeting the needs of our kids and they could do better. And they would meet more the needs of more kids if they had more funding. You know, so super powerful as a parent. And I will say, I'm going to say it again. I keep saying it because honestly, it was one of the most powerful moments for me as an advocate, as a parent. I'm just a mom, y'all. I have no special powers. I come to this with no special gifts. I'm just a mom who cares, like all of you, a mom or a dad who cares. And we found out over and over, actually, in 2019, Puberty said it was moms showing up who made the difference and got funding for HB3. It was in the last legislative session. I know from a personal conversation of a friend of ours with one of our most powerful Texas representatives that they couldn't pass vouchers because moms kept showing up and giving them hell. That was the expression they used. And that's us, you guys. That's us. That's the power we have. So as a mom, as a dad, show up, be visible, give them hell, identify yourself as a parent because they are not, they have a misunderstanding of the number of parents who want a better funded public school. We do not want another separate system for our kids. We want them to take responsibility for the kids in the school right now. So repost links, you bet. Yes, and that we have educational. Yes, that's a big one. So how many of you heard NPR this morning? 9 o'clock, they did a solid hour on vouchers. They interviewed parents focused on Arizona, by the way. And I'm going to get these links while I'm talking. It was actually incredibly powerful. And I think right on point. They talked about accountability. They talked about the impossible barriers presented to our impoverished families because of transportation issues or school uniform requirements or money that the school expects them to contribute. They also talked about what it's like being a voucher kid in a completely different socioeconomic environment and how taxing that can be. And this mom is like, I would love for my kid to go to a great school, but I can't put her in that situation. And so they're talking about it right now. There's a lot of stuff happening. If you do some research, if you look around, if you're paying attention to different news outlets, people are talking about these issues. And so it gives us the opportunity as parents to bounce off of that into our local newspapers or newspapers statewide and talk about these issues as well. I just reposted the links. Are there any other questions? Are you guys feeling confident on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being thumbs up, 5 being, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And 1 like, oh my God, I'm totally lost. Can you guys either post it in the chat or give me a thumbs up or sideways? I'm not trying to skew the results here, but dang, I would love it if y'all were like ready to go, ready to write. Gina, awesome. Alicia, Amanda, rock on. Okay, Jesse, Nick, love it. 8-7, I will take those. And as you guys know, and I hope everybody here knows, I am a resource for you all the time. I am happy to sit down with you. I'm happy to read your stuff. I'm happy to direct you to more information. just reach out to me. I'm here, and please let me come talk at your schools. Please let me come talk at your schools. We need to get this information out in every single possible way, and some people will never read a flyer. They are not getting the information through the emails. We need to be talking in front of them, and I tell you, every single time I go to a school, it's a powerful experience. There are people out there, we have teachers who have no idea. So the amount of information that I get from going to schools, the amount of information I get from talking to you guys, and you guys giving me a chance to be in front of your communities, huge, huge. So please consider me. Talk to your executive board about getting me on a schedule or have an extra meeting. You can do that with 5 days notice. You can say, hey, y'all, come to the school. We got to talk about funding. Okay, we got 5 minutes left, and I'm not going to keep you if there's no good reason for us to stay. But please, if you've got any questions, I'm here for you. And if you haven't, I would just say fond farewell. I love you. Thank you so much for showing up. We got big work to do, you guys, and we can only do it together.
I think Jessica's got
Thanks, Daphne.
Oh, wait, Jessica.
I don't want to keep though, but as far as just generally speaking, how to make an impact outside of just writing the, letters, how can we organize as concerned community members? Like, what makes the biggest impact on legislators? Is it just like getting everyone to write a letter to go to the Congress people? Is it going to the Capitol? I know it's probably all of the above, but like, how can we, if we had to pick like one thing to do and have a call to action for, our community, as an individual, what would be your recommendation?
Okay, so I would say the biggest impact for our representatives is in person. So testifying, talking to them in their offices, being part of Rally Day where they're coming and listening to us. That's the biggest impact, and not everybody can do it. I tell people all the time we have the opportunity here and the responsibility, and yet that Capitol, which is 8 miles away from me, can feel like a million years away. So I respect and understand that that's not something everybody can do. That is the biggest impact. The second is reaching out to the representatives. When we're talking about direct impact. So emails, but the caveat is emails very often just go into a bin. They're not really read. Letters, again, we've heard from representatives, send them letters, and having a big bucket of letters that are hand delivered to them is very effective. Big buckets of letters that go into their mailboxes may not even get checked on until the end of the session. Not to say it's not effective. At the end of the session, and when their mailbox is full, or they get a call from the post office halfway through that their mailbox needs to be emptied, that is effective. Phone calls, calling. This is probably, again, it's a sort of an in-person experience. Calling them is huge. Not everybody answers their phones. Leaving a message is fine, but finding a way to call through and actually talk to somebody. And sometimes it's just a matter of calling at the right time, calling when they're not so busy. That is huge. And they do keep track of that. And I will say, in terms of impact, I've been told at both the state and the national level, all it takes is 10 people calling on one issue, and all of a sudden they've got a staff member devoted to that issue. Maybe not forever, but at least for that day. They're going to follow up and find out, what are people talking about? Why are they talking about this? Is this something that could hurt or impact the representative? So those phone calls are huge. And one of the things that I like to do at PTA meetings, and I haven't done much of it in the last couple of years, is actually call the representatives. You've got 40 people there, or however many people showed up. You call a representative's office, put it on speakerphone, say, hey, I'm here with 30 PTA members. We're very concerned that our school's not getting enough funding. We would encourage you and encourage Governor Abbott to secure the funding we need to get the counselors we need, or the teachers we need. Make the spiel in public, have everybody say thank you, so they hear for real it's 40 people. And then that shows people how easy it is. I used to do that in the hallways. Like I'd walk around my community, people would be standing in little groups, like 2 or 3 moms gossiping, shit, spilling the tea, and I would bring the phone and say, hey, let's quickly call our representative. I'd put your local representative on speed dial because they're the ones that you have every right to reach out to them whenever you can. You may find that your community has 2 or 3 representatives because the way gerrymandering happens here, they have little strips that kind of go into little sections. I know my school has 3 representatives. So I'm going to go back. So Lori, sharing information, collecting. Yeah. So right. Sharing information. Huge, 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 huge. The number of people who do not know that our schools are underfunded do not know. And now I think we're underfunded by $5,000 from the national average. We're down to 48 in per pupil funding. People don't know this. So sharing it on Facebook, sharing it with your community, sharing it with your friends and family across the state so that they know that's something very meaningful that you can do. And these letters to the editor can't stress enough how often they get shared. It is crazy. They go viral in certain circles the way videos and other things go viral in other circles. So very important. Also, permanent part of the public record, y'all. You can look yourself up, and for time in memoriam, your thoughts are on the public record, and if somebody's looking it up, they may find it and it may influence them and they may share it. And so it is a super powerful way to do this. I do take groups of people to introduce them to the Capitol, how to get around, how to testify, how to register, how to, find your representatives, how to talk to them. So that's something we'll be doing more of in the spring leading up to the legislative session. And also keep in mind, we have Rally Day. So Rally Day is a great time for all of the PTAs and all the community members to get together and with one voice, rally and shout and sing and dance and plea for funding from our representatives. And so I encourage you to look into that as well. So I'm sorry, I'm having trouble keeping up with this. Asking to add. Yes, please ask your communications people to share that information. And yeah, we need ACPTA reps so that you guys can stay in touch with what we're doing. We also need advocacy chairs, and we're getting more and more. It's been really beautiful to see all the advocacy chairs in our schools this year. Make sure that when you become an advocacy chair, you get officially registered with the Texas PTA so that you will get the information you need as an advocacy chair to be effective in your job.
Real quick to piggyback, and thank you. This is wonderful information. Would you suggest for any of these organized? I'm envisioning setting out a date and saying everybody on this day make a phone call or put it together a letter and we will hand deliver it. Is there a timing to this? Like, do we wait for legislation to start and then do it, or now, or what would you say?
Well, actually, there's a lot of timing and strategy that goes into that. And there are a number of advocacy organizations that work at the Capitol, and they work together to try to understand how to do that. We tend to take our cues for that kind of call to action from Raise Your Hand Texas, which is one of our leading advocacy organizations, and one that most other advocacy organizations depend on. We'll also get cues from the Texas PTA. So Texas PTA will send calls to action that we will participate in. And then we do our own. So we have this Make It Matter Monday program starting probably in the spring. Make It Matter Monday efforts will on some Mondays include calls to action. What we find is that sometimes we will, and I'm guilty of this, I organized a bunch of people to send in phone calls or whatever, and it just kind of pissed them off. Wasn't really effective. And so if they're in a point in the process where they don't have a lot of options, or they have other things going on, and just a bunch of people calling and hammering them is not helpful, then we try to respect that, and we try to understand when those times are, because there are times when they're making decisions, there are times when they're open to decisions, there are times when the decisions are made and they need to be focusing on different decisions, and we need to be focusing on these different decisions and different options as well. And so I wish it were as simple as us just saying, you know, every Monday we'll send out something. It really gets more complicated than that. And so we tend to, again, we're volunteers. I'm just a mom. We tend to take our cues from those folks who are getting paid to do this so that we can do it at the appropriate times. And I will say, so there are going to be other times. So there are going to be other things. They will have letters that we can have people sign. We got what, 13,000, a huge number of signatures on a letter that we took down one time. It was like a stack of paper this big with just like, you know, single space lines, people having their say. There will be opportunities for that for sure, both through us and through Raise Your Hand Texas and through the Texas PTA. We will see multiple opportunities for multiple groups, and they tend to come from slightly different angles. You know, we will probably focus on, in fact, this year we're trying to be a lot more student focused. So, you know, we may have a letter that we're going to ask, you know, parents to sign or students to sign that's very focused on what we need for our students, where there may be other letters that are coming from grandparents who are saying, you know, we would like to see our schools look, you know, teach math better. Or there may be from the teachers union, it may be a letter that says, you know, here's the investment we would like in our teachers. And so there will be many opportunities. Please stay tuned. If you're not part of the advocacy Google group, I encourage you to do that. Lori, do you have a moment to send that that link? Actually, it may be easier for me. It's groups.google.com/PACPP. I've written this 5 million times. If you do not belong to our group, please sign up, because that's where we're sharing our Make It Matter Mondays. Also, and our other information. Also, social media. We have a communications person this year who's doing an amazing, phenomenal job. She joined us in the middle of last year. All of our social media stuff is timely, it's relevant, it's very fact-based, and it can be shared and should be shared widely and hopefully automatically. So hopefully you've got someone on your communication team who is checking our Facebook page every morning or every evening and lining up posts to share. I recognize also that not everybody has a communications team or a communications person. And so this is something, as an advocacy chair, that would be a very good use of your time if you are simply sharing the information that we're creating. Yes, that's right, Lori. Thank you. Next Monday, James Tallarico. He is a star in Texas, y'all. He is one of our most effective advocates against vouchers. He is one of our most effective advocates for funding. He is going to run for governor one day, and he will do anything we ask because he is a super fan of the efforts that we have made on behalf of the students, teachers, and parents of Texas, because he was a teacher and he knows how important this is. And so he sees the work that we do and he appreciates it. In fact, I got a message from his office this morning, just thanking us for talking, thanking us for the social media. So super important. This is one of those guys that we have a chance to get to know and get to know well now. He's local, but he's going to blow up. He will be governor one day, or he will be in somebody's administration. And he's one of the smartest guys I have ever met. He is on top of it and a kind, sweet boy. Like, I want to adopt him. I love him so much. So please join us next Monday. We're doing that at Carver Library. That information is on social media. We have an event on our Facebook page that you can share around and join us. I think you guys are going to really, really enjoy getting to know this guy. So now I've gone over. See what y'all have made me do?
Thank you, Daphne.
Yes, please. Any other questions, reach out to me. I'm going to quickly put my phone number in here.
Do you know if you guys are going to video the James Tellerico?
Yes, and that will be on Facebook Live as well. And we will do a way better job than we did last time. I'm learning every time, y'all.
And I will say, Indian Springs, if you've got people that are coming and want to testify, we do know a few sources of lodging.
I somehow missed that. But if that's on there somewhere, absolutely. We take people in, our trustees take people in. We are happy to host.
We are planning to come up from Keller area, so or come down, I guess. So yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah, reach
Yeah.
out to us.
And Tamara, I know, okay, this is being recorded.
You know what? Let's end this meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for coming. We appreciate it. I'm just simply going to turn off the recording now. Feel free to stay if you've got more questions. Thank you all. Love you.